Hello, and welcome to this, our first Silent Hill 3 Talkie episode. This is Michaela, Studious Octopus.
Peter. Just Peter.
Okay.
And Scott.
Yeah, so our same format, we've got us two commenting and Scott, our player, playing Silent Hill 3 blind. So, what did you think?
Well, the first thoughts was it wasn't afraid to drop you right into it, was it?
No.
It does, doesn't it, though? Because Silent Hill 2 is like, oh, there's this big road, and you've got to go up this big road, and you've got to get this map from your car, and then there's loads and loads of stuff that's not happening, there's footsteps.
Cutscenes and
Here's a gun, here's a monster, go.
Talking and talking.
Yeah, very much so.
I was a little disappointed I didn't get to shoot the monster myself.
Yes, that first monster just takes care of it for you.
Well, you do get to shoot the first monster, or at least fight the first monster, but we kind of didn't get that far.
Oh, yeah. Oops.
Yes, we didn't really do much in the amusement park in Heather's first nightmare.
Tempted to restart
There
it.
are some monsters, yes, but
Didn't.
I think it works. As we've said, it's a blind let's play. This is how
A real one.
Scott is just playing the game. There's nothing wrong with that. And you do get to go there again.
So it was a terrifying nightmare going to an amusement park and falling off.
That fallen dream you always have. You know, the one where you're naked. Okay, just me then.
Just you, yes. So one of the other things I wanted to point out is, isn't the engine pretty?
Yeah, I suppose so.
I was going to say, I particularly like their faces, because the cutscene engine is the game engine as well, and they've got wonderful facial.
The textures are very good on the models. I quite like them.
I was checking release dates. It came out in 2003, because there was a little bit of confusion of how old it was.
Well, because it says on the bottom of the opening menu that it's the 1990 whatever to 2003.
I was quite surprised it was 2003. It seemed a lot more well-made than a game of that time usually was.
Well, Silent Hill 2 as well was wonderfully well made, and that's older too.
And the fact that they actually improved on the Silent Hill engine to release the next game. I mean, it's got pixel shaders coming out of its bottom.
Indeed.
You could tell in Silent Hill 2, though, that it was a PS2 era game, because some of the background textures look very low-res and stand-out-ish compared to the rest of the assets.
And it has that thing, I think, where a lot of those games, past a certain age, everything was a bit square-ish, even if they're quite pretty. It's like all the rooms in 3 are wonderfully irregular shaped.
No white van so far.
I think well, there was actually.
Was there?
Yeah, the end, when you come out of the bathroom and you're in the long, long corridor.
I don't know if you saw it, but yes, there's a
white van at the
white
end.
van right at the
Oh,
end.
I didn't know, so damn it.
You saw the end with all the boxes piled up. Yes, I think the next thing we're going to talk about is, you've got down here is radio, but it's sort of, I think overall, but of how much it's sort of kind of doing things from Silent Hill 1, I think.
The radio didn't seem an awful lot necessary, just
No,
because
it
of
isn't.
the music.
The music is as much your cue for monsters as the radio is, and the music's much louder. It's very loud.
It is. Quite threatening as well. It makes the monsters seem scarier than they actually are. Because so far they haven't really been much of a threat, apart from the dogs.
Well, music is a massive, massive part of terror and horror. I mean, if you turn the music off and replace it with Benny Hill music, it instantly turns it into a comedy. The sound has that much of an effect.
I would be terrified.
Of Benny Hill music, just in general. Yeah, because the problem is, you put on certain types of music, it evokes certain types of emotions. You put on Benny Hill music, you think sexy party. You put on, Silent Hill 3 music, you think imminent threat about to die.
Very much so, yes.
Got lost there quite a bit.
Yeah, I didn't exactly know where to go. I could have sworn those toilets weren't there the first time when I picked up the bleach. I must have walked past them like 5 times and just blanked them.
Oh, we didn't notice or mention it at all during the playthrough.
I might have mentioned it a few times.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Actually, it's not a Jacuzzi moment. I'm not saying it's a you got lost, boo, because it's so big. The locations are labyrinthian, they really are. And you've just been thrust from the shopping mall into the subways. Will you see the map for the subways?
Actual subway-sized map for a small town?
Pretty much.
I quite like it in a way, though. It feels like they kind of went, well, be a bit ambitious. We'll go for more complicated.
Yes, there's a certain weight to the locations. They feel more like real locations.
Though if you put all the locations where you're actually able to walk into perspective, there's not actually that much there. It's a couple of corridors and a couple of rooms.
Still enough to get lost in, but
It is.
yeah, I mean, video games, you tend to scale things down. I mean, if you look at let's try a modern game, something that's just come out, GTA 5, and then you compare that to an actual map of Los Angeles, or even Los Angeles in the when LA Noire is set, because that's full scale. And to drive from one side of the map to the other side of the map takes about the same amount of time it would to drive from one side of the city to the other, because it's full scale. And you generally avoid that. So it's a cut down locations, but it's still enough, I think.
Oh, yeah. One of the asides I wanted to say, at the beginning, that first monster that you get to shoot, what did you think of the body on the ground? Not the monster, the other body. Did you think it looked a bit like...
Angela!
Did you think it looked a bit like Angela?
I wasn't paying that much attention to it, to be honest. It
People-
was a generic body.
People say it does actually look a bit like her. It has her jumper, certainly. She has her haircut. That's very interesting. But other than that...
Probably just a random Easter egg if it is. I don't think it really means anything.
Yeah, it's sort of... I think it's, again, sort of like you have in 1 and 2, where there's dead bodies on the ground. They're very grim. But we had 2 actual characters that you interacted with. So we had Douglas, who's very following you to the bathroom, and Claudia, who has no eyebrows.
Claudia seems to be a very Dahlia type person. Enigmatic and rather...
Cult leadery.
Yeah.
Very much so, yeah.
And the detective, I don't really trust him that much, but he has been following her around.
An awful lot, yes.
Wearing clothes, though. I'll tell you about that later.
Okay.
So we've got the Silent Hill 1 style, sort of normal world, foggy world. Well, normal world in this case, and the sort of the bloodstained, rusty other world. What did you think of the transitions? Because in Silent Hill 1 it very much tells you exactly where they're happening, gives you a big siren, there's a sort of whole transition scene. What did you think about the way that we transitioned in this game?
It wasn't very smooth. I thought it was quite sudden as well. Because it was, you walked into the elevator, bam, you're there.
Yes, it was one elevator to the skin-covered elevator.
Took a note from the hospital, from Silent Hill 1.
Very much so.
And there was flashes of something going on the other side of the bars. Because there was more than one monster out there. I don't know if you were looking.
He was probably looking.
Yeah.
Strange thing to say.
I did notice some of the sound effects didn't quite match up to what was actually going on. For example, the coat hanger for the ladder, the noise was rather organic rather than just tearing and twisting a coat hanger.
I'm not sure I really noticed, because we did have the sound quite low at that point, so it's not picked up by the microphones. But organic, you say?
Yeah, it wasn't like metal twisting at all.
Because what I thought you were going to mention is, I thought you were going to mention the cutscene where she kills the first monster with the gun, and it sort of collapses on the ground, and after it stopped moving, you can hear sort of squelching and moving and writhing, but you can't actually see it because it stopped dead by that point. I thought that was quite interesting.
I was going to say, thin metal coat hangers that you bend over and shouldn't really make any noise, I don't think.
Yeah, which is...
Oh, but they always do, though, in films and stuff.
Well, yes, so they add all that sort of stuff afterwards, so it has feeling.
To heighten the reality, I think is the phrase.
Just imagining some poor sound engineer not having a correct sound for the job and just picking something
Sort of
random
going,
out of a
it can't
list.
be quiet because it doesn't look right.
Because we're used to it making sound on films, and I think games always try and follow cinema more closely than they try and follow emulating life.
Not necessarily a bad thing.
No, it's quite a good thing, actually, quite a positive thing. So what references to Silent Hill 1 do you think you've noticed so far?
Well, the fact that the cult is definitely a bit more prominent.
Already you can tell that.
Yeah.
Just from the Claudia cutscene, I think, alone, that would be enough.
The other world exists, it didn't in 2. From what I
Yes,
remember.
very much so. The moths in the... I assume them were the moths?
They look
They
like
look
moths
kind
to
of like
me.
moths.
Yeah, so insects and worms is very much a Silent Hill 1 thing.
TV.
And the TV, of course,
Oh, yes. It has that almost clip of your original daughter.
I don't think we could have shown that without the graphical differences being apparent.
I'm going to have to keep a close eye on that, actually, because I think there's a minor difference in versions, in that one version of the game has speech from the first game, and another version of the game doesn't have speech in the first game. What I noticed there is that whilst on screen the subtitles said "Daddy." Did you hear anything there? Did you hear a daddy at all? Because I don't think we did.
I don't really recall hearing a full word, maybe a syllable. But...
So it'll be interesting to see, because there are some other sort of shots that have sound from Silent Hill 1, so it's going to be interesting to see if those are actually in the game or not.
Yeah. Monsters are very different in a lot of ways from the first two games so far. You've mostly been running away from them.
Yeah, the big ones seem clumsy and don't actually be able to get an attack off unless you're standing still, like I was at the door.
No, they're very. Some of them are very slow because they sort of stop and wait outside the room, and then when you come out and move, they sort of have a second where they're frozen still as well.
The dogs as well, they're quite tough because they jump around and you're quite frantic when you're trying to dodge them.
And they can gang up on you a lot.
We were saying it kind of reminded us of Resident Evil, of all things.
Yeah, those dogs were the worst enemies.
Because they leap at you.
They're also responsible for most of the jump scares I think I had in that game. Because I always end up crashing through windows or something.
Yeah, but it would be ridiculous if they used like a Pop-Tart as a jump scene or something like that. Anyway, moving swiftly on.
Well, no, I was also going to say, one of the other things we also mentioned is that a lot of the monsters are a little penisy.
We're addressing the elephant in the room, are we?
We can do.
Hey, I'm not that fat. Oh, sorry, right.
It did come across a little bit like that, especially the boss.
Yes, I think it does. Oh, and going back to what you were saying about Silent Hill 1, the boss, the big tentacle thing in the middle of the open mall bit, is very Silent Hill 1 as well.
Yes,
Don't know if you remember.
Definitely is. Because the bosses in Silent Hill 2 didn't really have that sort of arena-style fight, did they?
And we come across the boss just after we climb down a very long ladder.
Oh, for God's sake.
I wasn't singing the Snake Eater theme during it, don't worry.
You may have been.
Well, a bit of it.
Yeah.
Did you like it, Expecting?
Pardon?
Have you liked what you played so far?
Yes, I definitely did. I quite enjoyed it. I liked it better than the opening of Silent Hill 2, actually.
Really?
Really?
I can say that, actually, because Silent Hill 2
I
it
can't.
can be very slow. And it is one of the things I think a bit more you have to be in the mood for.
It's certainly a different
It's very
approach.
different,
And it's a
yes.
refreshing approach because of that. It's not as good, though.
We shall see. We've only played a few episodes so far.
Story has to develop first.
Yes, it does. Okay, well, we're done. So we'll see you next time for more. Hopefully soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.